Hello everyone and welcome to Kiki Crochet. In this video tutorial we're going to learn how to crochet step by step the Amelia tote bag. I want to give a big thanks to the store Magenta Arty workshop which is a store here in Greece, and they send worldwide their material. The material is very high quality, everything's 100% leather. Okay, the base, the button and the strap of the tote bag. And I will have on the first pinned comment under the video the link to the store and the link to their Facebook page. So now let's start. We're going to start by crocheting on our base, then we're going to see the body of our bag and then how to crochet the two parts to make the V on the center so we can adjust the button in the end. Okay, so let's see how to start. Okay, so now let's start crocheting on the base of our bag, and I want to be looking on the good side of the base, and I took the 4mm crochet hook. Now we are going to crochet chains around the holes, and then we're going to crochet on top of those chains that we're going to create. The mistake that I usually see is that people try to crochet right away single crochet inside the holes of the base, and this is wrong because first of all you're not going to make a long-lasting bag, because from the weight the stitches are going to open up, they're going to get loose and your bag is going to be destroyed. First that, and secondly, when you crochet right away single crochet on the holes, when you go on the next row and you start creating a stitch and not just particularly going around with only single crochet, the bag starts to shrink and it looks like a boat. So the way that we're going to start crocheting around the base is a correct way to go about. Okay, so put your crochet hook somewhere in the center and take the yarn from the back of the base and pull it through the hole, and do it slowly because you're crocheting with a smaller crochet hook than you're supposed to. Okay, and it might be kind of hard to pull the yarn. Okay, now extend the loop up until you reach the next hole. Put your hook in the hole, yarn over once, and pull the yarn through the hole and through the loop from your crochet hook. And this is my first chain. Extend your chain to reach, extend your loop to reach the next hole. Put your hook in the hole, yarn over once, and pull the yarn through the hole and through the loop from your crochet hook. Again, extend the loop to reach the next hole, yarn over once, pull it through the hole and through the loop from your hook, extend the loop, reach the next hole, yarn over once, and pull through the hole and through the loop from your crochet hook. Okay, so we're creating chains on top of the base. Now go all around and crochet the chains all around here up until the last hole. Once I reach this spot, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to create the last chain over here. Okay, I've crocheted up to the last hole, and now we need to cover this gap over here by creating another chain here in the end. So what I want you to do is cut the yarn that you're crocheting with and pull the loop through the chain. Okay. Now that I've pulled the loop through the chain, what I want you to do is put your crochet hook under the first chain that we created. Take the yarn, pull it under the chain, and now from the bottom to the top, I want you to put your crochet hook from the bottom to the top on the last chain that we created, and I want the crochet hook to come through the center of those two loops. So from the bottom to the top. Okay, and we want the crochet hook to go through the center of the chain. Now take the yarn and pull it on the back of your base. And here we go, we have created the last chain over here. Now we're going to make a knot. Okay, and weave in the ends right here on the loops that we have created by working the chains, and make sure that this is on the wrong side, on the inside of your bag. Okay, this is the good side and this is the wrong side, so weave in the ends on the loops over here. Once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to continue with our bag. Our base is ready to crochet onto it. Okay, I've weaved in my ends on the back here. Now we're going to crochet to single crochet under every single one of the chains that we created on the base. Okay, so put your hook somewhere in the center, and we want to be putting our hook under the whole chain, not front loop or back loop, the whole chain. Okay, grab the yarn, pull it under the chain and chain one to secure the yarn. Now under the same chain I'm going to work 2 single crochet. One, same chain, 2. Okay, now next chain. If it's hard to put your hook under, just grab it with your nail, pull up the chain and put your crochet hook under. Okay, 1 single crochet under the same stitch, 2. Next chain, 1 single crochet, same chain, 2. Next chain, 1 single crochet, same chain, 2. So keep crocheting all around, 2 single crochet on every single chain. Once I reach here in the end, I'm going to turn my video to see how to start row number 2. I've completed working all around 2 single crochet in every stitch, and this is how my work looks like at this point. Now we're going to put our hook in the first single crochet for this row, and we're going to work a slip stitch. Chain 1, and now we're going to start row number 2. Before we start though, we're going to need stitch markers, and we're going to put a total of 8 stitch markers all around, 2 on each corner. What I want to do is I want to turn my base upside down, and what I want to do is I want to go on every corner. This is the corner, and I want to put a stitch marker on the stitch, on the hole that's before and on the hole that's after the corner. I want to take the stitch that's aligned to that hole. So this is the hole over here, and this is the stitch that's best aligned on that hole that's right before the increase, the corner, sorry. Okay, and now I want to take the other stitch marker and go to the hole that's after the corner and attach a stitch marker to the single crochet that's best aligned to that hole. Now turn your work and count the stitches that you have between your stitch markers, and we have 1, 2, 3 single crochet between our stitch markers. So every time I need to have a 3 stitch distance between each stitch marker. Okay, so this is the next corner. This is the corner over here, so I want to put a stitch marker on the stitch that's best aligned to this hole and the stitch that's best aligned to this hole over here. So this is the hole and this is the single crochet that's best aligned, and I know that I need to have a 3 single crochet distance. So count 1, 2, 3, and on the 4th put your stitch marker. Okay, and as you see, this is the hole that's after my corner, and see how the stitch marker fell right on here. Okay, so now go into the next corner, and it's not that visible, but this is our corner hole over here, and this is the hole that's before it. Okay, now put a stitch marker on the single crochet that's best aligned, count 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and put your stitch marker on the 4th. Okay, and see how the 4th stitch marker fell right on the hole that's after my corner. Now let's attach our last stitch markers. Okay, now this is the corner hole, and I want the hole that's before it. Put a stitch marker on here and count 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and put your stitch marker on the 4th. See how it fell right on the hole that's after our corner? Okay, so we have a total of 8 stitch markers all around. Okay, and now we're gonna start crocheting row number 2. Starting from the very first stitch, which is this one over here, I'm gonna work 1 single crochet in every stitch, and on every stitch marker I'm going to be working an increase, 2 single crochet in the same stitch. Okay, so 1, next stitch, 2, next stitch, 3, next one, 4, and keep crocheting up until you reach the first stitch marker. I've reached my stitch marker, so take out your stitch marker, and in the same stitch we're going to work 2 single crochet. So 1, same stitch, 2. So keep working the same way all around, 1 single crochet in every stitch, 2 single crochet on the stitch marker, 1 single crochet, 2 on the stitch marker, 1 single crochet, 2 on the stitch marker, and so on up until you finish the row. Once you finish, and once I finish my row, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to start row number 3. I'm almost done with row number 2, and what I want to show is which is the last stitch of the row. And this is a very common mistake because many of us do not know where the hole of each stitch belongs, and we crochet on the wrong spot, and this is why we get usually a diagonal scheme. Okay, so every time that I crochet and I do not turn my work, I always work in the round. If I would turn my work, I would do this every time. So turn your work, in the end of the row turn, in the end of the row turn, and so on. So in this case, I am not turning my work in every row, I'm working in the round. This means that the hole of each stitch is on the top right. So this is the single crochet that I just worked. On the right side is the hole that belongs to it. The stitch before, on the right, is the hole that belongs to it. Okay, so the last stitch for this row is this single crochet over here. This next stitch is not a stitch, this is my slip stitch, in which I'm not going to work into. This is my chain 1 to start my row with. So I'm going to put my hook on the first single crochet for this row, and I'm going to work a slip stitch. Chain 1, and I'm going to start row number 3. Okay, so in the third row we are only going to work 4 increases in every corner. Okay, what I meant, 4 increases all around, 1 increase in every corner. Okay, so again, turn your base upside down, and this is my first corner. Okay, and the stitch that's best aligned is this one over here. Now I'm going into the next corner, which is this one over here, and the stitch that's best aligned is this one over here. So I'm going to count the distance between the 2 stitch markers. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 stitches between the stitch markers. Okay, so I'm going into the next corner right here, and the stitch that's best aligned is this one over here. So I'm going to count the distance of 13 stitches, and attach my stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So on the 14th stitch, I'm attaching my stitch marker, and it's aligned about in the corner over here. Okay, so we want to attach the stitch markers approximately. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start crocheting the third row, starting from the first stitch. 1, next stitch, 2, next one, 3, and keep crocheting up until you reach the stitch marker. I've reached my stitch marker, so I'm going to take it out and I'm going to work 2 single crochet in that same stitch. 1, same stitch, 2. Okay, so keep working 1 single crochet all around, and on every stitch marker I'm going to be working 2 single crochet in the same stitch. And once I finish row number 3 for the base, we're going to see how to start the rows of repetitions for the bubble stitch. I've completed crocheting all around. Okay, I've crocheted into the last stitch, and as I mentioned earlier, this, which seems as a last stitch, it's not, because this is my slip stitch. This right here is the chain 1, so put your hook in the first single crochet for this row and work your slip stitch and chain 1. Now the reason that I mentioned that this is the correct way to crochet on a leather base is because see how the rows of single crochet came out of the frame of the base? This is what we want to happen, because now that we're going to crochet one stitch in every stitch to create the bubble stitch, these rows are going to rise up and they're going to hug the base. See how nice it's going to look? And this is the correct way to crochet on the base. And this way it's not going to shrink inwards and seem like a boat once you keep working and pick to crochet whatever stitch that you want. Okay, so now let's see how to start the first row of repetitions for the bubble stitch. Okay, now we're going to start working the first row of repetitions for the bubble stitch. Now what's very important is that as you have seen, up until this point I did not count the number of stitches I had. This is because each one of us is going to work on a different base, which every base has a different number of holes, so in the end you're going to have a different number of stitches. And because many people get confused, and because I'm going to say that in row number 1 I have 80 stitches, for example, people think that they need to have 80 stitches as well, which it's wrong, because depending on the number of holes you have all around, the number of stitches that you're going to have in row number 1 and 2 and 3 and so on is going to be different. What's important is that in row number 1 we want to have 2 single crochet in every stitch. In row number 2 we want to work 8 increases all around, and in row number 3 we want to work 4 increases all around. Now at the end of row number 3 I have a total of 104 stitches. What's very important for the bubble stitch is that in order to create it, we need the number of stitches to be a multiple of 4. What this means is that when you take the total number of your stitches and divide it by 4, the result needs to be a whole number. If it's not a whole number and it is a decimal, that means I need to add either 1, 2, or 3 stitches all around your work in order to reach a number that's a multiple of 4. Now, if the total number of stitches that you have is not a multiple of 4 and you need to add your stitches, please make sure that you work another row again all around as we did so far and spread the increases around the row. Do not work all the increases in one side. Let's say you have to increase, you need an extra 2 stitches to reach the multiple of 4. This means that you're going to need to work 2 increases in 2 different spots where you're going to have to work 2 single crochet in the same stitch. Okay, make sure you spread the increases around your work. So let's say you're going to work one on this side and one on this side. If you work all of your increases, let's say over here in the beginning, you're going to make a gap over here. It's going to seem if it's a little mountain over here, you know it's going to rise up and it's not going to look nice. Okay, if you're going to need to make, let's say, only one increase, then that means that you're adding one stitch to your total number of stitches. Let's say you do it over here. If you want to add 2 stitches, that means you're going to need to work 2 increases. You can work the one increase over here and the one over here. If you want to add 3 stitches, that means that you're going to work 3 increases, work one here, and one here, and you're going to be just fine. Okay, so if you have the correct number of stitches, let's start the first row of repetitions. Okay, so let's start the first row of repetitions. I have already worked my chain 1, so turn your work. Now because we want the bubble stitch to always be made on the outside of our work, on the inside we're always going to be working the rows of single crochet. Okay, so row number 1 of repetitions is the first row where we're going to work 1 single crochet in every stitch. Okay, this is not my first stitch, this is the slip stitch. This is the first stitch over here. So if you recall, previously I was saying that because we're crocheting on the good side of the stitches, the hole that belongs to each stitch is on the top right. Now because we turned our work and this is the wrong side of the single crochet, the hole that belongs to each stitch is on the top left. So this is my first stitch and this is the first single crochet I'm going to crochet into. So 1, next stitch, 2, 3, 4, and keep crocheting all around. Once I reach my last stitch over here, I'm going to turn my video back on. I have worked 1 single crochet all around, a total of 104 stitches. And now I'm going to put my hook in the first single crochet for this row. I'm going to work a slip stitch, chain 1, and I'm going to turn my work to start the second row of repetitions. Now, in the second row of repetitions, I'm going to start working 1 single crochet in the first 3 stitches. Now, this is not my first stitch, this is the slip stitch. Okay, so starting from the first stitch, I'm going to work 3 single crochet in a row. 1, next stitch, 2, next stitch, 3. Okay, in the 4th stitch, I'm going to work my bubble stitch. So in order to work the bubble stitch, I'm always going to be yarning over and I'm going to put my hook in the same stitch 5 times. So yarn over once and put your hook in the next stitch for the first time. Grab the yarn, pull through the first 2 loops and leave the last one on your hook. Yarn over once, put your hook in the same stitch for a second time. Grab the yarn, pull through the 2 loops and leave the last one on your hook. Yarn over once, put your hook in the same stitch for the 3rd time. Grab the yarn, pull through the first 2 loops and leave the last one on your hook. Yarn over once, put your hook for the 4th time in the same stitch. Grab the yarn, pull through 2 and leave the last loop on your hook. Yarn over once, put your hook in the same stitch for the 5th and last time. Grab the yarn, pull through the first 2 loops and leave the last one on your hook. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 halfway done double crochet. We have a total of 6 loops on our hook. We are always going to be having 6 loops, okay? So grab the yarn and close all of the 6 loops together. Okay, now starting right away from the next stitch, I'm going to work 3 single crochet in a row. So 1 and pull out the bubble stitch after the first single crochet. Okay, 1, next stitch, 2, next stitch, 3. Now on the 4th stitch, again, I'm going to be working my bubble stitch. So yarn over once, put your hook in the next stitch, grab the yarn, pull through the first 2 loops, leave the last one in your hook. Yarn over once, second time in the same stitch, grab the yarn, pull through 2, leave the last one on your hook, yarn over once, third time in the same stitch, grab the yarn, pull through 2 loops, leave the last one on your hook, yarn over once. For the fourth time, put your hook in the same stitch, grab the yarn, pull through the first 2 loops, leave the last one on your hook, and for the fifth and last time, put your hook in the same stitch, grab the yarn, pull through the first 2 loops, leave the last one on your hook. So again, we have 5 halfway done double crochet and a total of 6 loops on our hook. Grab the yarn, close the 6 loops together, and starting from the next stitch, work 3 single crochet in a row. So 1, and pull your bubble stitch outwards, 1, next stitch, 2, next stitch, 3. On the 4th stitch again, we're going to work the bubble stitch. So keep working the same pattern. Okay, so bubble stitch, 1, 2, 3 single crochet, bubble stitch on the 4th, 1, 2, 3 single crochet, bubble stitch on the 4th, and keep working all around. And right here in the last stitch for the row, it's going to be a bubble stitch, which we're going to work together to close the second row of repetitions and start the third one. I'm almost done crocheting all around, and this is how my work looks like at this point. See how by working 1 stitch in every stitch, how the bag has started to build up. Okay, what we're gonna do now is, after the last bubble stitch, I've worked my 3 single crochet, and on the last stitch right here again, I'm going to work a bubble stitch. So every time we are in the repetitions of row number 2, the last stitch is going to be a bubble stitch. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last time 5. So I have 6 loops on my hook, which I'm going to close together, and then I'm going to put my hook in the first single crochet for this row, and I'm going to work a slip stitch. Okay, pop out the bubble stitch. Now chain, oops. Okay, so all of my loops just came out. It's okay. Just if this happens, make sure again that you have 6 loops on your hook. 2, 4, 6. Okay. And slip stitch. Now after the slip stitch, chain 1. And turn your work to start the third row repetitions, in which we're going to work 1 single crochet in every stitch. So because the last stitch was my bubble stitch, it's my first stitch turning around. So when we crochet on the bubble stitch, every time that we pull together those 6 loops, this little eye over here, this little hole up here forms. So this is where we want to be putting our hook when we're crocheting on top of the bubble stitch. Okay, so the 1 on top of the bubble stitch, 2 on the single crochet, 3 on the single crochet, 4 on the single crochet over here, and then the 5th stitch is on top of the bubble stitch, again right here on top of this little eye over here that forms. Okay, so 5 on the bubble stitch, 6 on the single crochet, 7 on the single crochet, 8 on the single crochet, and 9 again on top of the bubble stitch over here. So 1 single crochet in every stitch all around, and if you have crocheted correctly, you're going to have the total number of stitches that you had when you finished crocheting your increases. So I'm going to have 104 single crochet all around. I've completed the third row of repetitions, 1 single crochet in every stitch, and have a total of 104 single crochet. Now put your hook in the first single crochet for this row, and if you can't find the first single crochet, if you get confused, what you can do is when you crochet the first single crochet of every row, right away after the first single crochet, put a stitch marker on it so you can see it in the end of the row. Okay, so put your hook in the first stitch, work a slip stitch, chain 1, turn your work, and now we're going to start the fourth and the last row of repetitions. What we want to do in the fourth row is, again, we're going to work the bubble stitch, and we want each bubble to fall in between the bubbles of the previous row. So what we're going to do is, in the first stitch, I'm going to work 1 single crochet. Okay, so 1 single crochet in the first stitch, and right away in the second stitch I'm going to work my first bubble. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I have 6 loops, close them together, and now again I'm going to work 1 single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, pull out the bubble stitch, 2, and 3. On the fourth stitch again I'm going to work my bubble stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I have 6 loops, close them together, and 1 single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. So see how the bubble stitch has fallen in between the bubble stitches of the previous row, and now the pattern is exactly the same. 3 single crochet on the fourth stitch, you're going to work the bubble. 3 single crochet on the fourth stitch, you're going to work the bubble. The only difference is in the beginning, where I only start with 1 single crochet instead of 3 that I start in the second row of repetitions. And in the end of the row, I'm going to finish with 1 single crochet in the last 2 stitches, along with the one in the beginning of the row. I have the 3 stitches distance between the bubble stitches, the one that I'm going to work here, with the first one that I worked in the beginning of the row. Okay, so once I reach almost in the end, where I'm going to work the last bubble here, I'm going to turn my video back on to work the last 2 stitches together. I'm going to complete row number 4, and then we're going to see how to start the repetitions all over again. I'm almost done crocheting my row. I have crocheted my last bubble stitch, and I'm left with 2 single crochet to finish my row with. Okay, so every time you're finishing the repetitions of row number 4, this is how you're going to finish it. 1 single crochet in each of the last 2 stitches. Okay, and put your hook in the first single crochet for this row and work your slip stitch. So the 2 single crochet that we just worked, along with the 1 single crochet that we worked in the beginning of the row, give us the 3 single crochet distance from one bubble to the other. And see how the bubbles of this row fall in between the bubbles that we did in the repetitions of row number 2. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and start all over with the repetitions of row number 1. So chain 1 and turn your work. Starting from the first stitch, which it isn't this one, this is my slip stitch. This is the first single crochet. We're going to work 1 single crochet all around. 1, 2, on the bubble stitch, 3, on the single crochet, 4 on the single crochet, 5 on the single crochet, 6 on the bubble stitch, 7, and keep crocheting 1 single crochet all around up until the end. I'm going to have a total of 104 stitches again. I have completed crocheting my 104 single crochet all around, and I'm going to put my hook in the first single crochet for this row, and I'm going to work a slip stitch, chain 1, and turn your work. Now we're going to do the repetitions of row number 2. So in when we do the repetitions of row number 2, the bubbles are going to align with the bubbles that we did in the beginning of row number 2, okay? But they're going to fall in between the bubbles that we did in the repetitions of row number 4. So what we did in the repetitions of row number 2, we started by working 1 single crochet in the first 3 stitches. This is my slip stitch, so this is the first stitch of the row. 1, 2, and 3. On the 4th stitch, I'm going to work my bubble. Okay, so starting first time, same stitch, 2, same stitch, 3, same stitch, 4, and the last time the same stitch, 5. So I have 6 loops on my hook, which I'm going to close together and work 1 single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. So see how the bubble is perfectly aligned with the one that we did in the repetitions of row number 2 in the beginning, but falls right in between the repetitions that we did in row number 4. So keep working the same pattern up until you finish the row where the last stitch is going to be a bubble stitch. So when we do the repetitions of row number 2, in every 4th stitch we're working a bubble. So the 4th stitch in the end is going to be right here, the last stitch, and it's going to be a bubble. Once I finish the repetitions of this row, I'm going to turn my video back on. I've completed the row, I've completed working the repetitions of row number 2, and as I mentioned before I turned my video off, my last stitch is the bubble stitch. So now I'm going to put my hook in the first single crochet for this row, and I'm going to work a slip stitch, chain 1, and turn your work. Now we're going to work the repetitions of row number 3, where we're going to work 1 single crochet all around. So since my bubble stitch was my last stitch, it's the first stitch turning the work. So put your hook on top of the bubble stitch and work your first single crochet. 1, next stitch, 2, 3, 4 on the bubble stitch, 5, and keep working 1 single crochet all around. Once I work my 104 stitches, I'm going to turn my video back on. I've completed working my 104 stitches. I'm going to put my hook in the first single crochet, and I'm going to work a slip stitch, chain 1, and I'm going to turn my work. Now we're going to work the repetitions of row number 4. Okay, and what we want to do now when we do the repetitions of row number 4, the bubbles are going to fall in between the repetitions of row number 2, but they're going to align perfectly with the ones that we did on the first repetition of row number 4. Okay, so starting with the repetitions of row number 4, what we want to do is we want to work 1 single crochet in the first stitch, and on the second stitch I'm going to work my bubble. So for the first time, 1, 2, same stitch, 3, same stitch, 4, same stitch, 5, oops, I have a total of 6 loops which I'm going to close together, and I'm going to work 1 single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. Okay, from here on we're going to keep repeating the same pattern, so 3 single crochet on the 4th stitch, the bubble stitch, 3 single crochet on the 4th stitch, the bubble stitch. The only difference is in the beginning, where we only start with 1 single crochet, and in the end, once you keep repeating the pattern over and over, where you're going to work your bubble stitch on every 4th stitch, this is where the last bubble stitch is going to fall, and then you're going to crochet 1 single crochet in the last 2 stitches of the row. And this is how every time the repetitions of row number 4 start and end. Okay, once I finish my row, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how it looks, and then how to continue off camera. So see how the bubble that we just worked falls in between the bubbles that we did in the repetitions of row number 2, but it aligns perfectly with the repetitions that we did on the first round of repetitions on the 4th row of repetitions. Okay, this is why we keep repeating the pattern over and over again. I've completed working the 4th row of repetitions, and as I mentioned, right here's my last bubble stitch, and I completed my row with 1 single crochet in the last 2 stitches. Now I'm going to put my hook in the first stitch for this row, and I'm going to work a slip stitch, chain 1, and from here on again you're going to start repeating you're going to start working from the repetitions of the first row. So you're going to turn your work and work 1 single crochet all around. Then you're going to turn your work, and the repetitions of row number 2 are the ones that we start with 3 single crochet and bubble on the 4th. Then the 3rd row is 1 single crochet all around again, and the 4th row is the one that we just did, that we start with 1 single crochet, bubble on the 2nd, then 3 single crochet, bubble on the 4th, and so on, and you finish the row with 2 single crochet. Okay, once I finish crocheting on the desired height, on the total height that I need, I'm going to turn my video back on. I'm going to mention the total of rows that I have at that point. I'm going to mention the total height, and then we're going to see how to separate the stitches to work the 2 sides of our bag. I have completed crocheting my bag so far. Okay, the total height in centimeters is 26 centimeters, and I have worked a total of 38 rows, starting from the first row of increases that I worked on the base up until the last row. I have a total of 38 rows. This means that I have a total of, if I count only the bubbles, I have a total of 17 rows of bubbles. Okay, so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And after the last row of bubbles, I have worked 1 row of single crochet. So what this means, I said that the rows of repetitions are rows from 4 through row number 7. Those 4 rows are my rows of repetitions. So from row 8 through row 35, I repeat those 4 rows. And from row 36 to 38, I repeat rows 4 through 6. So I only repeat for the last 3 rows the row of single crochet, the row of bubbles, and the last row of single crochet. Okay? And there is a reason that I stopped at that point, okay, when I have the repetitions of row number 5, because I want my bubbles to be equal on the front and on the back side. See, when you fold in half, the bubbles match with each other. Okay, so fold your bag in half, and now I'm going to count my bubbles. I'm going to be grabbing 1 bubble on the right side and 1 on the left. Okay, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 13. On this stitch, I'm going to put my first stitch marker. What I want to do though is I want to turn and I want to check on the inside which single crochet is crocheted on the eye of the bubble, and it's this single crochet over here. So I'm going to put the stitch marker on the right of that stitch. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 13. This is my center stitch. So again, I want to turn on the inside and check which single crochet is on top of the bubble stitch, and this is the single crochet over here that's crocheted on the bubble stitch. So on the right side of that stitch I'm going to put my stitch marker. So I have aligned my stitches, and now we're going to work the one side together and the other side we're going to work off camera. Now in order to start crocheting, right here where I have worked the last row of single crochet, slip stitch, chain 1, cut the yarn and fasten off. Okay, and we're going to attach the yarn from the beginning. What we want to do now is we want to attach the yarn, and what we want to do is we want to start on the stitch that's right after the stitch marker, and I want to go all around and finish on the stitch that's right before the other stitch marker. And what we want to do is we want our bubbles to keep aligning with those from the previous rows. We do not want to change the pattern because our bag is not going to look nice, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach my yarn, okay, on the stitch that's right after the stitch marker. Okay, grab the yarn, pull it through the stitch, chain 1, and again put your hook in the same exact stitch and work your first single crochet. Okay, now on the stitch, on the next stitch, I'm going to work the bubble in the same exact way we worked the other bubbles, so I'm not going to go step by step. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I have 6 loops which I'm going to close together, and then from the next stitch work 3 single crochet in a row. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Again, on the next stitch I'm going to work my bubble. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, 6 loops which I'm going to close together, and then again work 1 single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so see how the bubbles align with the ones on the previous rows. Now keep working in the same pattern. Now again, after the 3 single crochet, work bubble, 3 single crochet, bubble, and so on. And once you have crocheted all around, okay, if you have crocheted correctly, on the last 2 stitches over here, on the second before last, I'm going to work my bubble, and on the last stitch I'm going to work my single crochet. So in the same exact way that I started my row, 1 single crochet and bubble, in the same exact way I want to finish with a bubble and 1 single crochet. Once I finish the first row, or row 39, you know, for this side, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to work the next one. I finished my row with my bubble and the single crochet in the last stitch, which was the stitch before the stitch marker. Now I'm going to start the next row, which is going to be the row of single crochet. Now In every row of single crochet that we are going to be starting, we are going to be working increases in the beginning and in the end of the row. This way, in every second row, we're going to have less bubbles, so we can have the nice closing of the bag, okay, of the sides of the bag. So I'm going to chain 1 to start the next row, and I'm going to turn my work. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work a 3 single crochet increase in the beginning and a 3 single crochet decrease, 3 single crochet decrease in the beginning and a 3 single crochet decrease in the end. So I've worked my chain 1. The first stitch to decrease is the single crochet, then on top of the bubble, and then on the single crochet. But when we work decreases, in the beginning of the row, I never put my hook in the first stitch, although it counts as the first stitch of decreases. I always jump over and work the next 2. Okay, so single crochet together the first 3. The first one, which I'm going to skip, the second one, and the third one. Okay, I have 3 loops which we are going to close together. So this is the first single crochet of the row. Now work 1 single crochet in each of the next stitches, and once I'm left with the last 3, I'm going to turn my video back on. Okay, so I've worked my first one, 2, 3, and the fourth one on top of the bubble. 5, 6, 7, and the 8th on top of the bubble. Okay. Once I finish working the single crochet, I'm going to turn my video back on. I'm going to mention how many stitches I will have at that point, so you know how many stitches you'll have before you work your decrease. I've completed working my single crochet. I have worked 46 so far, so stitch 47, 48, and 49 are going to be worked together to form a decrease. Okay, so put your hook in the next stitch, hold the loop on your hook, put your hook in the next stitch, which is the bubble, and hold the loop on your hook, and put your hook in the last stitch, which is the single crochet, and hold the loop on your hook. So we're closing together 3 stitches, and we have 4 loops on our hook, which we're going to close together. And this is the end of the row. Okay, so all the rows of single crochet are going to be worked in the same exact way. We are always going to be working 3 stitches together in the beginning and 3 stitches together in the end. When we start the row of bubbles, we are always going to be chaining 1. We are going to be turning our work, and the way that I'm going to start this row, which is the 3rd row for the side that we're crocheting now, okay, the same way that I'm going to start is the same way that you're going to be starting every row of bubbles, of the bubble stitches. Okay, so start by working 1 single crochet in the first stitch for the row, and on the second stitch I'm going to work my bubble. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Close together all 6 of the loops, and 1 single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so see, the bubble that we just worked falls in between the ones of the previous row and aligns with the one on the row before that. Okay, so now keep working the same pattern, 3 single crochet bubble, 3 single crochet bubble, and so on. And we are going to finish the row right over here, where the last 2 stitches are going to be your bubble right over here. and the last stitch, the single crochet over here. We're going to work the last 2 stitches together, and then we're going to start for the last time together the next row of single crochet, just to make sure you have understood it correctly. Okay, once I reach right here in the end, I'm going to turn my video back on. I'm almost done with my row, and we're going to crochet the last 2 stitches together. Now, what I forgot to mention when I started the first row of the bubble stitch is that we did have in the first row of the bubble stitch a total of 13 bubbles. In the row that we're working now, we're going to have a total of 12 bubbles. So in every new row of bubble stitch, we're going to have 1 less bubble to work, and this because we work the decreases. Okay, so I have worked a total of 11 bubbles so far. I have worked my 13 stitches, I've worked my 11 bubbles, my 3 single crochet, and now I'm gonna work the last 2 stitches, which is going to be my bubble, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Close together all of the 6 loops and 1 single crochet on top of the last single crochet of the row. Okay, now again we're gonna start the row of decreases. So chain 1 and turn your work. And again, as we did earlier, we're gonna work together the first 3 stitches. Again, the first stitch is a single crochet, the second stitch is the bubble, and the third stitch is a single crochet. We always jump over the first single crochet, although we count it as one of the 3. So 1, second stitch, my bubble stitch, and the third stitch, the single crochet. Have 3 loops, which I'm going to close together, and then start crocheting 1 single crochet in every stitch. So that was my first stitch, 2, 3, and my 4th stitch is my bubble stitch. Okay, keep crocheting 1 single crochet all around, and once I finish here in the end, I'm going to turn my video back on. I'm going to mention how many stitches I had so far, and the last 3 stitches that I'm always going to be closing together are the single crochet, the bubble, and the last single crochet of the row. I've completed working my single crochet so far and have a total of 42 stitches. Now, just so you know, so you don't get confused, in every row of single crochet, when we work the last, right before we work the last decrease, we are always going to have 4 less stitches than the row we did before. So if you recall, before we worked the decrease down here, we had 46 single crochet, and then we worked the decrease. Now I have 42 single crochet, and I'm going to work 43, 44, and 45 together. Okay, so in the next row of single crochet, you're going to have 38 before the decrease, 34, 30, and so on. Okay, so I have 42 stitches so far, and I'm going to work the last stitch. So put your hook in the next single crochet and hold the loop on top of the bubble stitch and hold the loop, and on the last single crochet for this row and hold the loop. We have 4 loops, close them together to form the last stitch, chain 1 and turn your work. Okay, again we start the rows in the same exact way. 1 single crochet in the first stitch for this row. Next stitch we're going to work the bubble, 3 single crochet bubble, 3 single crochet bubble, and right here in the end, again your last 2 stitches are going to be a bubble and a single crochet on top of the last stitch. And remember that in every row of bubble stitches you're going to have 1 less bubble. So in the first row we had 13, second row of bubble stitches we had 12. Now we're going to have a total of 11 bubble stitch. Once I reach the bag in the spot where I'm going to stop working the decreases in the bubble stitch, I'm going to turn my video back on. We're going to see how our bag is going to look like at that point. and then we're going to work the other side of camera because it is going to be worked in the same exact way. Okay, I'm almost done crocheting the one side over here, but I turned my video on because I believe that in the last rows you're going to get confused. So we're going to work the last rows together. Okay, now I have stopped at the spot where I have a total of 3 bubbles on my row. 1, 2, 3. I have worked the next row of decreases. Okay, so the next row of single crochet. So right here, after the row with the 3 bubbles, I've worked my row of single crochet with the decreases, and I have a total of 7 single crochet. Okay, I have worked my chain, so I'm going to turn my work, and now in this row we're going to have left a total of 2 bubbles. So put your hook in the first single crochet and work a single crochet. On the next stitch, again, we're going to work our bubble. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, close together all of the 6 loops. Now 1 single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and now I'm left with the last 2 stitches where I'm going to work my bubble stitch in the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Close together all of the 6 loops and work 1 single crochet on the last single crochet for this row. Okay, chain 1. See, we're left with only 2 bubbles. Now chain 1 and turn your work to work the last row of single crochet. Okay, we're gonna work our decreases, and as I mentioned earlier in the row, we close 3 stitches together in the beginning and 3 in the end. Even though the first one is one of the stitches of the decrease, we do not put our hook in there. So 1 next stitch on top of the bubble, 2, and the next stitch, 3. I have 3 loops which I'm going to close together. So this is my first stitch. My second stitch is the single crochet, the next stitch, okay, the next single crochet. So this is my second stitch, and the third and the last stitch is going to be my decrease. So first stitch, the next stitch, which is the bubble, and the third and last stitch, which is the single crochet. I have 4 loops which I'm going to close them together, and I'm going to work 1 chain to start the next row. So I'm only left with 3 single crochet. My first decrease, the second single crochet, and the third is my decrease. Turn your work, and this is going to be the last row in which I'm going to be left with only 1 bubble. Okay, so put your hook in the first single crochet and work a single crochet. On the second stitch, work your bubble. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Close all of the 6 loops together and work 1 single crochet on top of the last stitch of the row. Okay, now chain 1, cut the yarn, pull the loop, and tighten up. So this is how your bag is going to look at this point. Okay, so once you finish the one side, turn your bag around where the finished side is on the right, and we're going to start the other side, and we're going to work it off camera because it's going to be worked in the same exact way that we did this side over here. You're going to start crocheting on the single crochet that's right after your stitch marker. So you're going to start over here, and you're going to go all the way around, and you're going to finish on the stitch that's right before the stitch marker, so right over here. Okay, so we're going to do this side off camera. Once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how we're going to attach the strap of the bag, the button, and how we're going to line it. I've completed crocheting my bag so far, and this is how it looks from the bottom going to the top. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're going to attach the yarn right here in the center, and we're gonna work 1 or 2 rows of single crochet all around to give a nice edge right here, okay, in the ends. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take out my stitch marker, so I'm going to take out the stitch marker, I'm going to put my hook right in that stitch, and I'm going to attach my yarn. Okay, so grab the yarn, pull it through the stitch, chain 1, and work 1 single crochet in that same stitch. Tighten up. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to work 1 single crochet right here in the edges, and what we want to do, what you need to be aware of, is that from one bubble to the other you need to have a total of 3 stitches. Okay, so the first stitch is going to be right here on the row of the bubble, okay. The next stitch is going to be worked on top of the bubble, and the third stitch is going to be worked between the 2 bubbles right here. This is my row of single crochet. See this big hole over here? This is where we work the decrease. So right here I'm going to put my hook to work my single crochet. Okay, so first single crochet on the row with the bubble right over here, on this hole over here. Second stitch on the bubble right over here, and third stitch right next on this hole over here between the 2 bubbles, which is the row of single crochet. Again, first single crochet here, 1, 2, and 3. Again, 1, 2 on the bubble, 3 between the 2 bubbles. Okay, so 1 on the row of the bubble, second stitch on top of the bubble, and third stitch on the hole that's between the 2 bubbles. This is the row of single crochet. Okay, so this is where I just worked my single crochet. Now the first stitch again right here on the row of the bubbles, second stitch on top of the bubble, third stitch on this big hole right here between the 2 bubbles. This is the row of single crochet. Okay, again, 1 on the row of the bubbles, 2 on top of the bubble, and 3 on the big hole right here in between, which is the row of single crochet. Okay, so keep working this pattern up until you reach up here. Once you have worked on this row of bubbles where we were only left with 2 bubbles over here, once you work single crochet here, single crochet on the bubble, single crochet on the big hole between the 2 bubbles over here. Once I crochet right on here, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to crochet around the last bubble, and then we're going to continue off camera. Okay, I have worked my 3 single crochet for this bubble over here, and now we're going to go to work on the next bubble, which is the last one. Okay, I want to work 1 single crochet again on the row that's right here on the bubble. Okay, first single crochet. My second single crochet is going to be worked on the bubble on the right side, right over here. Okay, and now I'm going to pull up the yarn that I fastened off right here where I finished, and right on this stitch over here I'm going to work 2 single crochet on the same stitch. 1, same stitch, 2. Now we're going to start going downwards, and it's going to be a little trickier because the stitches are going to be different. They're going to look different than the ones that we were going upwards. So every time we're going upwards on the back, we're following the steps that we did on this side over here on the right side. Now on the left side, we're going to go downwards. What we want to do is, again, we want 3 single crochet from bubble to bubble. Okay, so what I want to do is right here I have worked my 2 single crochet in here. I want to go on this hole, on this stitch over here, to work my next single crochet. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to work a single crochet right here on the row of the bubble. So this is the first single crochet. The second single crochet is going to be worked on this hole right beneath, right over here, second stitch. And the third stitch is going to be a little tricky. You need to pull down your bubble stitch. Okay, and on this hole that appears right over here, on here, we're going to work the third stitch. Again, the first single crochet is going to be worked right on top of the bubble over here, 1. The second stitch is going to be worked right beneath that stitch over here in this hole. This is where I just crocheted the first single crochet, second single crochet, and the third stitch, again, pull down the bubble, and on the hole that appears right over here, I'm going to work my third single crochet. Okay, so let's start. Right on top of the bubble, put your hook on under here and work your first single crochet. Second single crochet right next to it, right beneath, over here. And the third stitch, pull down the bubble, and on the hole that appears right over here, work your third single crochet. Again, 1 single crochet right on top of the bubble, 1 single, this is where I just worked, then 1 single crochet on this big hole over here, right beneath it, and 1 single crochet on the hole that appears once you pull down the bubble. So this is where I just worked, and go right beneath over here to work the third stitch. Okay, and this is how it looks like. Now keep working one single crochet in every stitch as we just mentioned. Once you reach the stitch marker going downwards, work one single crochet on the stitch mark and then start going upwards, crocheting the same exact way that we showed right over here when we started working upwards. Okay, so once you work the single crochet in the center, keep working upwards. On top of the last bubble, you're going to work it in the same exact way that we did on this side over here, and then you're going to start crocheting downwards in the same exact way that I just explained. Okay, so once you've gone downwards all the way, once I reach this stitch over here, which is the last stitch, I'm going to turn my video back on to work a slip stitch on top of the first single crochet of this row. I've completed crocheting all around. I've worked going downwards. Okay, I've worked my last single crochet of the row, and this right over here is the first single crochet of the row. So I'm going to put my hook, I'm going to work a slip stitch, chain one, cut the yarn, fasten off, burn all of your ends so the yarn doesn't frog itself. Okay, and once you weave in all of your ends, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to attach the strap, the button, and everything else. Now that we have completed creating our bag, see how nice the row of single crochet that we made all around, how it looks nice in the edges. Now what we're going to do now, I'm going to show real quick and I'm going to sew them off camera. Firstly, we're going to sew the strap, and this is how it looks like. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to fold together this leather piece, and I'm going to place it on the inside right over here, just so this semicircle appears only from the side of my bag. I'm going to place it right over here on the inside, and I'm going to sew it. Then I'm going to fold the other side in half as well, and I'm going to place it on the inside of the bag, and I'm going to sew this as well. Once I've completed sewing the bag handle, I'm going to take the button. What I'm going to do is right here, this right here is the wrong side because this is where I worked my slip stitches. Okay, so this is going to be the wrong side, the bad side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my bag on the good side. This is the front of the bag. Okay, and I want to place the belt right over here on the angle, in the center of my bag. Okay, I'm going now to take it on the bag right over here, and I don't want to have any spaces from the button of my bag. Okay, I don't want to have like this space over here. I want to be touching the bag. Okay, and we are going to sew those 4 holes on our bag. Now, because the bubble stitch makes it hard for us to sew, what you're going to do on the bubbles that you're going to sew the bag, the button, the closing, okay, right over here on those bubbles, I'm going to push them inwards, so I'm making it easier for myself to sew it. See how nice it went right in between the bubbles and how nice it sits on the bag now. Okay, so once you sew this part, turn on the good side, close properly your bag. Okay, and the bottom part of the button we're going to sew on here on the good side of our purse. And again, right here on the stitches that it aligns, go ahead and push inwards the bubbles over here as well. See how nice it fits? Okay, so once I finish sewing everything on the bag, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit the lining. The lining is already sewn. This is how Maria gives it from the store. Okay, now the pockets are going to be on the side where I have the wrong side. Okay, so this right here is the wrong side over here. Fit in your lining. And we want the lining to be right under your angle over here. So you want to sew right under the corner, right over here. And the sides over here that we crocheted in the end are going to be left without lining. So I want to line the inside over here. Once you fit nicely your lining on the inside, we want to sew right under the angle. And I'm going to play a part from the Edinburgh backpack where I'm going to show how to work the invisible stitch in order to sew the lining on the bag, okay? Because I'm going to work the same exact stitch, I'm going to now play the part from the Edinburgh backpack, sorry. And once I finish showing how to sew the lining on the bag, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how our bag is going to look completed. Start to pin it on your work and make sure we do not want to, as we go through to pin the lining on the crochet project, make sure you do not stretch out either the lining or your project, okay? Okay, next pin. Okay, so keep pinning your lining all around. Once I finish, I'm going to turn the video back on to see how to sew the lining on the bag using the invisible stitch. I have completed fitting the lining in my bag, and this is how it looks like. What I did, I put a few pins all around just to make sure that the lining is on the right place. And what I did is I took all the pins out and I put a pin on the one side and a pin on the other side, and I took out the lining and I ironed it just to make sure that my edges over here are straight, to make it easier for me to sew on the bag. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna show you how to work the invisible stitch. Now, many of you know how to sew very well. This is my first time performing. This is my first time trying to sew something on a crochet project other than a pleats, which is very easy. So if you see any mistakes, please don't judge me, but I would be really happy for you to post comments under the video that would help me to better my sewing skills. Okay, so let's see how we're going to sew. I'm going to show a few steps and then we're going to work off camera. Okay, so what I want to do in order to work the invisible stitch, I'm going to take one of my pins out and I'm going to attach the yarn on my lining. So from the inside to the outside, bring your needle out right here in the corner that's made from the ironing. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, see how the thread is coming out at this point over here on the lining, on the same spot but on the backpack. Sew and take the needle out, just go a little over and take out the needle. Make sure your needle is not coming through the back, okay? We just want to grab the loops, the back loops over here, okay? And pull the thread, pull the needle. Now see at which point is coming out here on the bag, at the same spot but on the lining, up here on the corner on the edge over here. Put your needle Okay, and take it further down, and now bring it out. Okay, now on the same spot that the thread is coming out from the lining, I want to go on the same spot on the back and put your needle in the back on the backpack and bring it further down and take it out. Okay. I'm going to take out this next pin. Now on the same spot where the thread is coming out from the backpack, on the same spot on the front, on the lining, put your needle, bring it further down and take it out. Okay, see how nice the lining looks on our backpack? This is the invisible stitch. How nice, you can't even tell that you're sewing by hand the lining on the backpack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep sewing up until I finish off camera. So we are always going to be going from the lining to the bag. Again, from the bag to the lining, then back to the bag, back to the lining, and at the spot where the thread is coming out, you want to go on the back part and sew and bring out the needle. On the same spot where the thread is coming out on the backpack, put the needle in the lining and sew, bring the yarn a little further down, and on the spot that the thread is coming out from the lining, go ahead and put the needle in the bag and sew, bring the thread a little further down, and keep sewing in that manner. Once I finish sewing, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how the lining looks completed, and then we're going to see how to crochet the tightening cord that we're going to attach on our backpack. I have completed sewing my lining all around, and see how nice it looks with the invisible stitch. Okay, all around. What I'm going to do now, right over here where I finished, I'm going to grab over here the end and tighten up a little bit, and I'm going to go right ahead on the inside of the lining over here, and I'm going to work a few knots to be sure that my work is secure. Okay, now that I worked a few knots, I'm going to bring my thread, take your needle and bring it out down here on the lining and cut the yarn. Okay, and we've completed lining. I've completed attaching all the parts on my bag, and this is the result that we have. Okay, so let's see now one by one how I sewed the parts on the bag. Okay, so I made a little design here on the button. I sewed in a similar way on the back over here, and as I mentioned before I turned my video off, I have pushed inwards my bubbles so it stays here nicely. Okay, here I have sewn the leather parts for the strap, and on the inside this is how the lining looks like. Okay, so thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and if you like the video, please press like and leave a comment. Thanks again. Bye bye.